So I got really messed up after I read Arthur Schopenhauer's essay called The Emptiness of Existence. I narcissistically felt like I was learning the dirty truth of reality, but the more of him I read, the more immature and insecure I felt. It was a tropey episode of my life. I was a college freshman going through an existential crisis. But it's a very real experience and transitional period that many of us have gone through or probably will. For some people, including myself, you have that experience during the worst of all times. If you have ever been depressed before or are still in it, then you'll understand when I say that for some people, depression is something that never truly dies. Like the flu, each time you cover, the depression that you would fall into becomes hard to get out of due to a stronger tolerance for misery. And when we are in that proverbial hole that some of us probably dug for ourselves, we try to find ways to get out of that hole, fill it, and find ways to forget about it, our depression, and its causes. It's kind of like how a person with Tourette's syndrome can avoid ticking when they briefly forget that they have Tourette's in the first place. Sometimes those afflicted entertain the idea of putting themselves into a coma, hoping that when they wake up, they'll lose memory of their Tourette's and thus be rid of it. And even if they remember, at least they can rest for a little bit longer. Cartoons, movies, and sports partially pacified my tics when I was younger, and it's art that Arthur Schopenhauer regarded as true escape from metaphysical suffering. So what follows in this video is a summary of a portion of Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy and the rationale behind the metaphysical mindset I created to help overcome my despondencies. And I hope it helps you too, or at least worth a listen. Schopenhauer says that every moment that has passed no longer exists, and that every moment that will come has yet to exist, both meaningless. He describes the ever-coming present as reality, and that something belonging to the present, however unimportant it may be, is superior to something that has ever happened before. So what, right? That's why we pull out our pocket proverbs and list of good quotes and say carpe diem, live in the moment. But Schopenhauer says nah. He calls that the greatest folly of man, since the next moment exists as quickly as it vanishes, like the memory of a dream. And to be in a condition of mirth, you must constantly be present and active, never taking a break. All the meanwhile, the complications of life drains you away. He then invites you to take a cosmic perspective, to realize how short a time alive is in respect to existence, a perspective grand enough to make the best of us feel feeble and small. So in the ever-fleeting present, the only way we can keep striving forward is to be in constant motion, never resting. And if you ever find yourself stopping, you'll end up being a lesson with Tim Mcgraw song. Schopenhauer says that we are restless agents who will never cease to keep changing until the day we die. By change he means our natural instincts, tendencies, and moods who want to be satisfied, primarily in these three respects: hunger, sex, and boredom. So it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Many of us follow the stones already set for us, taking advantage of the hard work done by others that molded them, and step forward into the routes already taken, because it's easier and it's more secure. For example, most of us go to school and enter the workforce, so we can earn jobs decent enough so we can live comfortably under a stable roof, earn the things we need and the things we want for our particular selves, and be viewed as more attracted to each other and ourselves. So it's kind of like the mantra of fuck bitches get money, but not really. And in this modern social climate where marriage rates have been declining and the internet is outstandingly accessible, people are still driven by boredom. Hell, I think the totals of boredom today is far worse than that of the past due to the availability and normalcy of information and the cynicism in our media. And we all know how boring it is to hear someone bitch constantly about themselves. The reason why I think therapy is so expensive. But really, nothing excites anyone more, for good or bad, than when their identity is questioned or placed under the spotlight, scrutiny, or suspicion. We like the idea of ourselves, even if we don't really like ourselves. So we take on hobbies, push ourselves in the gym, show why the amount of time in a day is Netflix's biggest competitor, and order food past midnight even though we really aren't that hungry despite being too supposedly poor to go out with our friends. All to cure our boredom, and also to avoid the tediousness that comes with living in a complicated world as a simple human being, and for some people, it may feel like vice versa. So we set goals for ourselves, and when we accomplish them and level up, we feel like we're in cloud 9. But this dude says, so what? Since the high spirits you get from accomplishments and satisfactions are evanescent, they diminish into meaninglessness because you're going to want something else of pure or greater importance some other day. These events become memories, then abstract items with the qualities of a possession that serve to remind us of who we are. Then they become normalized to our being. They become items of empty nostalgia, mementos, medals, and trophies that we cling to and long to revisit, long to feel again. No longer a home for us to thrive in, but a town of familiar things we don't want to leave. It becomes more like burden, and then possibly an addiction. Some of us stay in these proverbial states of minds, actualized into lifestyles until we're in a hospital bed, staring at a boringly patterned ceiling or some shitty mural, not on drugs, that's supposed to lighten the mood, thinking about the things we could have done and didn't do, all the while our skin sinks into our bones. But what of the person who reels in a fish only to throw it back in, or the quarterback or soccer player who doesn't gloat after scoring? So in this mindset, after every accomplishment, every trial, every milestone, we become again dull, looking for something new or a higher ladder to climb, looking at the abstract totem pole we made for ourselves, seeing where we could be one day. Do it again and again and again until you're on the top, or that's as far as you can go, or that you experience enough pleasure and satisfaction that you expected in the end. But pleasure is like completing a puzzle, where similarly, satisfaction is not reached until each piece fits its intended place, and when you're done complete, what moves you the most isn't a short-lived sense of accomplishment you frame, no. It's the realization that motivates your mother to become a Pilates-obsessed machine. The question that inspires moguls, Olympians, and executives to become teachers. And it's the reason why the rich can get bored and enter into misery. And it's every show and screamer's way of keeping you to stay tuned and invested into the story. What's next? Schopenhauer summarizes this as lives lived in expectation. That we are born into a dream of constant wanting and needing, only to have our last days be about yearning and regret. That humanity, in general, is befooled by hope and dances into the arms of death. But death doesn't seem so bad when we view her like this. For those who read The Sandman, you'll understand what I'm getting at. I'm going to keep spoilers to the absolute minimum, so listen at your own risk. So in this chapter, the protagonist Dream wonders why humanity has such a fearful attitude towards his sister, Death, since death is as natural as birth. He recalls from a human dream long ago of a song that celebrated death. In essence, the song said death was like coming home from a war, or like getting better from sickness, or coming home from a hard days of work. Essentially, a return to haven, where you sincerely cannot be restive. But the question still teases, how do we defeat boredom? How do we overcome this continuous cycle? And will I be able to do it before I get the tattoo I regret later? Or at least before the point where I'm okay with snorting cocaine during class? Hopefully yes. This mindset worked for me and helped me get my shit together. And if you're in that place called depression or any other form of unrest, I hope my solution helps or is something worthwhile to hear. Boredom is a feeling of emptiness in life, which we enter once we feel satisfied with our immediate needs of security, and sometimes we are unable to. You know, like those days where you feel like there's another kind of gravity that's keeping you from getting up from your bed? This satisfaction of need and security in and of itself is a complicated mess of things because we often get twisted when understanding what we want from what we need. When we are bored, we aim or wish for something. That thing is an illusion that keeps us from returning to that feeling of normalcy and routine. It makes us feel alive or gives us something to look forward to, and not just waiting for the next planned vacation or conventionally expected milestone in our lives. Even with the pursuit of knowledge, curiosity, when we put ourselves in the seat of an observer looking onto the world, we're still engaging in sensual pleasures, and once we figured out what we wanted or thoroughly entertained, or had to go back to work, we return to that state of existence of boredom and unrest, always trying to satisfy it somehow. Sometimes with material things, sex, drugs, attention, the type of stuff that caused security in the first place. It's kind of like a negative feedback loop, the reason why we enjoy interruptions and one of the reasons why we procrastinate. But here's the thing, ironically the trail of life is seemingly cyclic if we view it in a discrete sense. Not discrete like glory holes are discrete, but like how staircases and some masts are discrete. Well, I propose that our lives and identities should be perceived as an agent that is constantly being and not becoming. That personal amelioration has become the goal, and each accomplishment or disaster is just a fork in that never-ending path carved by our principles and rules that we try to follow to the best of our ability. What am I getting at? Well, first of all, it's one of the things that's so obvious that's not. Like David Foster Wallace's story of a fish who asks what water is. You have to pay attention to yourself and to those around you. Empathetically at first. In my opinion, exercises of sympathy before and not concurrent with empathy may lead to the adoption of a mawkish and unappreciative mindset. By paying attention to yourself and by not comparing yourself to others, you can focus on becoming a better and stronger person. This is so important, and not one that endorses an uncompetitive mindset. You must be competitive and compete against yourself because you exist in yourself first, your body and your mind, and then that exists in the world. Moreover, I have no doubts that bodybuilders are competitive people, and to them one of their biggest sources of criticism and progress is what they see in front of the mirror. Figuratively, climb a statue of yourself. Live life by a set of principles and values, and let that be the spirit of everything you do, your goal. The purpose that fuels your actions, your desires, and tests of restraint. How you work, love, entertain your hobbies, treat your friends and family, yourself, be an exhibition, a living incarnation of your principles. By adopting this mindset, you no longer view life as a series of discrete steps. You found singularity. In other words, you'll always be on a journey, always in a thorough chasing, and never seeing an end to that journey, because that journey has now become you. an agent, a goal which lives within a vessel, will. And that end isn't met with another vicious cycle. It's with the welcoming embrace of death where we can finally find rest. Also, along with art as entertainment, spend more time with meaningful art that challenges you. Understand them in isolation so your initial impressions aren't at risk of being influenced or swayed by others. I'm not saying that people deliberately act fickle unless you're a sycophant or a cynic. I'm just saying to not underestimate your unconscious mind. Look for discussion after you have properly engaged in it yourself. Be inspired by them, and then create art that reflects what you like and who you are. Since art is a balance between chaos and craftsmanship, or creativity and skill, we are able to transcend our natural instincts of avoiding pain and engaging in pleasure by putting effort into crafting constructions that explore those very natural instincts. Art pulls a rug right under the harshness of our biological animal-like predispositions by transforming emotions, irrational and powerful things, into something physical, real, tangible, or consumable. See, I'm a pretty emotional guy, so it's difficult to express emotion without seeming like a bitch or be condescended by others who think you're irrational or stupid for choosing heart over logic. With art, you have the ability to sophisticate your emotions, make them intelligible to others, all while exploring why you have them in the first place. This is one of the reasons why I love the Lantern Corps so much, who draw their powers from the emotional spectrum. Art can be the practice of truth and a way to avoid boredom, which does not conform to the tediousness of the pursuit of security. This is why it's so important for professional artists to not forget to enjoy what they're doing. And what a sight it is when you see people who acknowledge the ridiculousness of pointing at the sky and stating their significance, but fucking do it anyway. More or less, enjoy life as your own person. Be sure to make good friends who you can collectively flip off the stars with. And don't forget to appreciate and keep growing, even during the toughest of times. When you have a chance to prove to yourself that you have will and that you are in control.